Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Bryce Kirkpatrick, Turf Program Director here at Real Turf Solutions. Today we're going to go over a little Tuesday tip in regards to some of these bare areas that you see in your yard this time of the year. As we reach the July time of the season, July is typically a good sign that grass should be now fully growing, fully green, fully healthy, bearing any issues that you may have as far as fungus or any other kind of issues of that nature. But one thing we want to talk about today is kind of those shaded areas that everybody has sometimes in their yard, especially when you have large areas of trees, whether it be pine trees or just some good old oak trees. The biggest concern a lot of people always kind of come to me, or just we hear in general, are why do I have some bare areas underneath my trees, or why is my yard green here in the front, but as close as I get to those tree areas, the grass kind of starts thinning and is going away. Biggest thing about that is, guys, is it depends on your turf type. If you have centipede, you have Bermuda grass, those two particular grasses do not like a lot of shade areas. Centipede can tolerate some shade, but it doesn't tolerate a whole lot of it. So if you've got some areas where the sun pretty much rises and sets and that particular area gets hardly any sunlight, there's going to be an issue of not having that grass healthy and green in those areas. As far as Bermuda grass, it doesn't like hardly any shade at all. So if you have Bermuda grass in some areas, and then of course the closer you get to those tree lines or just some shaded areas in general because of the house, due to which way your house faces, you're going to see a lot of decline in those areas, and there's not a whole lot you can do for that except for in a flower bed area, maybe you can bring that flower bed area out a little further to pretty much out inside of the drip line. The drip line is basically categorized as where the last point of the tree branch reaches out into the turf areas. That's an easy solution. Now, they do make some turf types that don't mind shade, but at the same time now they still like some sunlight. So if those areas don't get any sunlight, it may be best for you and a little bit cheaper for you just to go ahead and bring that flower bed area out, to just extend that flower bed and to do away with those bare areas and let that grass that is healthy up until that certain point match up to those areas of flower beds, so that way it looks better. But you can go with a zoysia grass. There's different types. Different sod companies call it all different kind of names. You have Zenith zoysia, Emerald zoysia, you got El Toro zoysia, and the list kind of goes on and on from there of just different varieties that different sod companies have produced over the years. Certain ones of those zoysias like more shade than others, and can tolerate more shade than others. Some are almost kind of like a Bermuda grass or a centipede. They prefer just as much sunlight as Bermuda, and don't really like a lot of shade. So it really helps to determine which zoysia type is best fit for those areas you may have concerns with, of why your yard's looking bare in those shaded areas. Some other things that can be causing some bare areas right now we touched base on this earlier in the year on a Tuesday tip about soil pH and soil testing. A lot of times this time of the year, if you're not careful, you can start noticing bare areas that could be brought on by a problem called take-all root rot. Take-all root rot is caused by a number of factors, but one of the main factors that we do see some when we diagnose the fact that we got take-all issue is due to soil pH. Soil pH is very vital in determining what sod type works best in those areas. So not only do you got to worry about the shade areas, but you also need to make sure your soil pH is right for that sod as well. So those are a lot of things you got to determine there. So a lot of times the biggest thing I would suggest doing is if you had the time, kind of get an idea of how that shade works. Is it early morning shade? Is it afternoon shade? Or does it pretty much shade all day long? If you have some early morning shade or some afternoon shade, there's a good chance you may be able to get some grass to grow in those areas. A lot of times it may be compaction issues. People don't realize a lot of times too, as well, is those big old trees that everybody loves that produce that shade. They're all lovely and nice, but they produce a lot of roots, and those roots take up a lot of soil nutrients and water out of the soil, which in results can decline that turf grass as well. So in those shaded areas, you might not want to overwater, so to speak, because you don't want to cause any fungal issues. but you may want to make sure you water a little more in those areas to be able to produce enough water for that tree to take it up, as well as that sod to take it up. Because a lot of times what happens is as soon as you water, that tree sucks it up really fast, and at that point the soil's back dry and that grass is thirsty, and it's hard for it to thrive. So biggest thing to keep on the lookout for is, the different shades, whether it's early morning, afternoon sun. Also, if you notice any bare areas outside of shaded areas, it may be best to kind of make sure there's no other problem issues going on, such as insect damage. Grubs can cause some issues this time of year. Mold, crickets also are a big problem. So you want to be on the lookout and make sure those are not activities to be looking for. Chinch bugs is another one. And then, of course, you also want to just double check and make sure that you're getting the proper sunlight, whether it's early morning, afternoon. So if you have any questions or concerns, or maybe you had this problem going in your yard, or you just curious about anything else you might can do for that, give us a call at 478-988-0043. We'll be glad to come out, take a look at that, give you some suggestions, whether it be bring the flower bed out some more, or maybe we can suggest a sod type that may be able to help thrive in that area. And then at the same time, we love to just hear from you. So if you would, just give us a call. Thanks.